Hello and welcome back to the series on Sahi Pro. Today, my friends, we are going to be discussing another very interesting feature in Sahi Pro called as fetching APIs. Now, you may be wondering what is these fetching APIs and when and where would I be using such a tool. Now, let me give you a practical demonstration of the same. Now, I am going to a dummy application where we have created where a user can log in. Right? Now, you must please understand, in such applications where a user logs in, sometimes it is very important not only to be able to identify particular elements on the web application, in this case, for example, a text box called as username or a text box called as password, but also sometimes for validation purposes, we will have to extract or fetch the values present within the text box. Now, identification of elements is a topic which we have discussed in great detail, where all you need to do is click on control and hover over an element and there you go. It has identified using the attributes and it's telling, okay, this is a text box user, right? But now what I'm saying is, assume I give a value here called as test. Now, I want to identify or get the value present inside this text box that I have identified. Now, how are we going to do that? It's very simple. If you pay close attention to the controller, there is a tab called as other actions. Do you see that? Now, if in case I click on this drop down, there are many actions you can perform, but what I want is get value. There is an operation called as get value. Now, if in case I were to click on get value, automatically it has created a script here for me telling that it is going to use a fetching API called as get value. And value present inside which element? The element called as text box which we have identified, and clearly you can see it gives me test. Now, if in case I were to go here and replace this with Sahi Pro like this, then if in case I were to now go and re-execute this, clearly it is giving me Sahi Pro. So, I hope you are able to see that it works perfectly, right? So, this is a very powerful tool. Now, let me give you another demonstration, okay? So, let us assume I just log into this application. Test is my username, secret is my password. I will click on login. Now, upon clicking on login, there is another dummy page which we have created where there are some books that is available as inventory and you can purchase those books. So, let us assume there are 5 books of core Java in stock. I will be purchasing 2 books of core Java. I will be purchasing 3 books of Ruby. I will be purchasing 4 books of Python. Now, I will just click on add, in which case automatically it has created a total, a grand total which is 2600. Now, what I want you to understand is that, see, how I would like to approach this is that I would like to perform an assertion operation in my test case where after I add a certain number of books and I click on add, this grand total which is calculated, I want to assert or verify whether it is right or wrong. But to do assertion, first you must be able to extract the value present within that text box. And how can you do that? Easy. So, watch it. I will just go here, hover over this grand total by pressing control. It has identified the text box. This already you know. Then I am going to go to this other actions, click on the drop down and say get value, in which case it has created a script for me where it uses a fetching API called as get value, and clearly you can see it gives me 2600. And if in case I were to go here and make this as 5 books of Python and add, automatically the total changes, and if in case I were to execute it, clearly you can see 2950 has got fetched. So, this is really helpful. So, I hope all of you understood a practical application of how we will be using these fetching APIs. There are a total of 6 fetching APIs, out of which I have shown you one, which is get value. Now, what about the other 5? Let's explore. Now, I am going to show you the practical application of another fetching API called as get text. Now, you may ask me, what is the use of get text? Now, please understand, previously, we looked at get value. Now, this get value fetching API must primarily used for fetching the value of elements which is text box based elements, right? For example, a username text box or a password text box or a text area. So, whenever in a text box based element inside that value you want to fetch, get value can be used. But there are so many non-text box based elements as well. Now, if you see what I'm trying to tell you, you will understand it better. So please watch it. Assume I go here, I will give the username as test. I will give the password as some 123, which is the wrong password. Now, if in case I click on login, you can see there is a message which came here, an error message telling invalid username or password. Now, how can I identify that is the question, because that is not a text box. So, get value is not going to help us. Now, how are we going to identify that if you ask me? It is very simple. Please try to understand. I'm going to go here, first identify that element by hovering over it and pressing control, in which case it is telling, oh, that is a div element and the text is invalid username or password. Now, what I'm going to do here is, I am going to go to these alternatives. And in the alternative, Sahi Pro has automatically given us another alternative saying, hey, do you want to identify a div where the message is not a regular message, but it is an error message? And correct, this is an error message. So watch it, I will click on that. I hope you're able to understand. Now, if in case I were to just highlight this, it is able to identify it, yes. But highlighting is not what I want to essentially do, okay. So now, please understand, this is my div error message, so I'm just going to add it here. Now, the action that I want to do is, I want to get the text present in this error message. So, what I'm going to do here is very simple. I will go to these actions and there is another action called as get text. The moment I click on get text, now it tells me that, hey, listen, invalid username or password is the text. So, what are we doing? We are using a fetching API called as get text. Right? And this get text, though the name says get text, you must use it for non-text box related items which you want to identify on your web page. I hope you're able to understand. So, in this case, clearly it is able to identify it. So, this way it's a very, very handy tool. So, for example, there is a payment gateway that you're testing. So, a successful payment is going to generate a message saying payment successful. A payment which failed due to XYZ reasons is going to display another kind of an error message saying transaction failed, transaction under processing, please contact bank, some problem occurred. So, how are we going to identify these elements? Well, this get text fetching API can play a critical role in such applications. Now, my dear friends, I'm going to show you the use of another fetching API called as the get attribute. Now, you may ask, what is the use of get attribute? Let me give you an example. Many a times in our automation scripts, there will arise a scenario where you will have to not only identify a particular element. Upon identifying the element, you must get the value of one of its attributes. The simplest example I can give you is, for example, in OpenCart, all this desktop, laptop, components, tablets, all these are links. Now, a link is nothing but an anchor tag, in which there is an attribute called as href and whose value is the link to which we will navigate upon clicking. What if my script demands me to get the value of this attribute called as href? And that is where this fetching API comes into the picture. Let me give you an example. First and foremost, I am just going to press Ctrl and hover over this link called as desktop. It has identified it. Now, what I want to do is, I want the link, the href attributes value. So, all I am going to do here is, I am going to go here and call a fetching API called as get attribute. Next, I want to get the attribute of which element. This is the link element, right? So, I'll just go here and click on this, automatically it will copy that. Now, you must tell a particular tag may have n number of attributes. Which attributes value do you want? You must tell. So, comma, within double quotes, I will tell the name of the attribute, and in this case, it is nothing but href. I hope you are able to understand. Now, upon executing, clearly you can say I have got a link here. Now, the question is it the right link? That we can easily find out. If I just go here, if in case I just inspect this, then if in case I just go to this desktop, right, and clearly one can notice this is the link. This is the link, and if I go to my Sahi Pro, if I just keep it aside, you can just compare the links side by side and you can see that 100% it is one and the same. So, it works. Now, this is not the only case. Maybe you probably want to identify the CSS class which is being used for a particular element. What do I mean to say? For example, if in case I go to this text box here, clearly you can see there is a CSS class. It is form control input. Yes. Now, I want that attributes value, which is the class attributes value. Now, how can we do that? It is very, very simple. Again, I'll just go back to the controller. I'll just keep it a little this side. Next, I will click on control and I will identify this text box. After identifying this text box, what I'm going to do is I will again be calling my get attribute fetch API, okay, and I will just say, okay, please, I want the attribute of this element, which is my text box called as search, and which attribute is important to mention. In this case, I want class. And if in case I were to execute it, clearly you can see form control input, which is exactly what I showed you. So there are many use cases for this get attribute, but please understand Sahi Pro can easily help you fetch the value of any attribute of any element which is available in your web application in a matter of couple of clicks. So I hope you understood what is get attribute. Let's move on to the next fetching API. Alright my friends, now it's time for us to look at the next fetching API, which is called as the extract fetching API. Now when do we use extract fetching API? In simple words, whenever you need to extract some content which is dynamic in nature, extract will help you a lot. For example, I have a pagination example in front of me, where clearly you can see whenever, now there is one text here showing 1 out of 10 of 57 entries. I hope you're able to see that. I'm just highlighting it for your reference. Now, what you must understand here is that if I change the page, clearly even that content changes. So it's dynamic in nature. I hope you're able to understand. So how is it that we are going to write a script which is going to extract these dynamically changing values? And what is dynamically changing? Showing is constant, to is constant, off is constant, entries is constant. But what is changing is the numerical values, right? So how do we extract these numerical values? Now let me show you. First, please understand the steps. I'll go to Sahi Pro, click on control, hover over this. So it is saying, okay, this is a div tag. Now, what I want to do is, this text is not static, it is dynamic, it is going to change. So what I will do here is, I'll go to this alternatives drop down and say, hey, listen, this whatever message is there, it's just an example. It is going to change every time. I hope you're able to understand. Now what I will do is, I want the text. Only if I get the text, from the text I can extract the values. I hope you're able to understand. So what I will do is, I'll go to actions and I will use the fetching API called as get text, right? In which case it is telling showing 1 out of 10, 57 entries. And now if in case I were to change the page here, and if in case I were to execute, it is saying showing 11 or to 20 of 57 entries. But now what if I wanted just the 11, 20 and 57? What if I wanted only that? I want to extract those numerical values, okay? So now please try to understand how to do this. I'm going to cut this and I'm going to use underscore extract, which is another fetching API. Now, from what do you want to extract? From this, whatever text we are going to be fetching, right? Not only that, now watch it, you must put a comma, put double quotes and tell what is the dynamic content in the text that you are going to extract. What is the dynamic content? Please understand, this is the value. I'm just copying this value and I'm pasting it here. Now, please try to understand, in this value, showing is fixed, to is fixed, entries is fixed, but what is changing is the 1, 10 and 57. So wherever a dynamic change may happen, I'm going to remove the numericals and apply a regular expression. What is the expression? I will show you, but I'm just going to put parenthesis like this. Now what I will be doing is, I will go here and put a regular expression saying match any numerical that comes here. Dot star, and dot star. I hope you will understand. Now, if in case I were to execute this, then even now it is, you can see it is telling, hey, listen, showing 11 to 20 of 57 entries, and from that I have extracted 11, 20 and 57. So you can see the dynamic content it has extracted. But you may say, hey, I don't want that text. I just want the 11, 20 and 57. If that is true, then please go and pass an additional parameter to this, comma true, like this. And if in case I were to execute it, clearly you can see you'll get only 11, 20 and 57. If I were to change the page and if I were to execute it correctly, you will get the dynamic content. You can see this and that is matching. So I hope you are able to understand. Extract fetching API is a very powerful tool whenever you want to extract some dynamically changing content. And how do you go about doing this? I hope I've been able to give you clarity. Now let's move on to the last two remaining fetching APIs. The last two fetching APIs which will really help you in automating your scripts is first the isVisible and second exists. Now there is a small difference between both. Let me show you what I mean. For example, if in case I were to go and give a username but the wrong password, and if in case I were to log in, a message appears on the screen. Clearly this message is visible to the user. But please understand, sometimes a message could be present inside the DOM, but it need not be visible to the user. So you want to check whether it is visible or not. That is very important. So how do we do this? Very simple. Click on Sahi, hover over this, it is going to identify the div. Please go to the actions and there is something called as isVisible. If I click on isVisible, it is going to evaluate and tell true. Yes, it is visible. Now, let us assume I were to just refresh this. Now, that message is not visible to the screen. If I were to just execute it, clearly it is going to tell me false. Yes, it is not visible. But please understand, friends, that message, invalid username or password, is not visible right now. But 100% it is present inside the DOM. That is why when somebody gives wrong username and password, that message is coming. So now the question is not whether that message is visible or not. The question is whether that message even exists within the DOM or not. Now how do we do that? That is very, very simple. All one has to do is go here and you can see above isVisible, there is something called as exists. If I were to click on exists, it says true, because irrespective of whether it is visible or not, it does exist in the DOM. So I hope you're able to understand the difference between isVisible and exists. So I hope all the 6 fetching APIs I have been able to give you clarity upon. Now it is for you to use your creativity and make your automation scripts that much more easier to code and that much more efficient using Sahi Pro. Catch you in the next tutorial. Take care.